Let's talk a little bit about the shape of the graph. We've seen in an earlier example a graph that we said was bell-shaped, right? So let's look at some other common shapes. So the graph on the left are the grades for a recent quiz that I gave. Now this is an example of a left-skewed graph. I gave a survey to a statistics class where one of the questions asked how many siblings they had. So this graph shows a long right tail, and this is an example of a right-skewed graph. So how do I remember the difference between left-skewed and right-skewed? Here's how I remember it, because students mess this up all the time. The left tail is skinny, it's skewed left. So think of skinny, skewed. The right tail is skinny, it's skewed right. So hopefully that'll help you remember that. Here's a summary of the different ways, at least at this point, we can describe the shape of the graph. I'm going to draw the graph, and you see if you can determine the shape of the graph. So this graph is going to be left skewed. Good. This graph is right skewed. This is an example of a bell-shaped curve. And this is an example of one we haven't seen yet, possibly. It is called uniform distribution. This would come up, for instance, if you were rolling a die and were recording each time a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 were to appear. This would show up as a uniform distribution. So one other way we can describe the graph is by the number of humps. 1 hump or 2. So the hump or peak is the mode of the data set. So the mode of the data set is the number that occurs most often if you don't remember. So this first graph, we've seen this before, this is grades on quiz 3. This is called unimodal. It has just one mode at 9. The second graph here, this is grades on quiz 4, has 2 humps or peaks, one at 2 and one at 9. We call this bimodal. If there are more than 2 major peaks, we call it multimodal. Now we can't count little minor peaks, and a lot of this is subjective. So I hope that helps you sort of find ways to describe the shapes of the graph. Because you recall, we have to, when we are describing distributions, we need to describe the shape, the center, and the spread of the distribution at least. And these are some ways we can describe the shape.